Okay, so we've made it to the Gemini full moon. And of course, there's already the astro drama being projected out by many astrologers online. This is the last full supermoon. This is, someone said it's the last till 2042 of the highest moon. Now, according to our perception, when the moon and sun are above us, it's closest to us. And when they're furthest from us, it's on the horizon. So I don't know what this person's saying, because Cancer full moon would be a lot higher. Not a lot higher, but the highest. Because according to the ancient texts, the religious texts, one of the original interpretations of these texts were about the sun and the path of the sun and the moon. And so each sign has a position in the sky, has like a gate or a portal. So Gemini is right before Cancer. Cancer is the highest point in the sky that the sun and moon can be in. And if you are experiencing it, you have to tilt your head. That's how high the gate is. So this isn't constellations. This is a astrological, using the zodiacal wheel, the 12 signs, and imagining it in the sky, where the top of the wheel is Cancer and the bottom of the wheel is Capricorn. And Capricorn is where the lowest height of the moon. And you can always determine the peak height because it's 6 hours after the rising of the moon or the sun, 5 to 6 hours, and that determines the height, a peak height. So you can see what gate it's in according to that. So there's an old science, astrotheology, that talks about the path of the sun and the moon, and how the son of, the Most High, the Son of God, S-U-N, is the sun. And sun worship was very important because and is very important, not worship, sun reverence, let's say that. I think there was worship to Ra being a god, but really it's about reverence, paying attention to these positions, because these positions also have an angle of light on the earth. And we are a part of the earth system, so we get affected by the different angles of light. And you can see it's most dramatic in Aries, when we've gone from the underworld of Capricorn, darkness, into the light of Aries, where spring begins. And that is when all the plants start bursting. Well, the whole thing was happening underneath the earth before that. That was being affected by angles of light in Pisces. So there are different angles. And angles are also angels. So this is a part of this really, the symbiotic nature of this reality. Now we're in Gemini full moon. Sagittarius Gemini is the polarity. And Gemini represents the twins. Also, it's symbolized by the two pillars, which is really talking about duality, the good and bad, the highest and the lowest. And in this reality we live in a dualistic nature, where there is this electricity and magnetism. There is this, good and bad, dark and light. This is part of what makes us function also in our bodies. We have, waters and minerals and blood, and everything is like in these channels and moving. And minerals and electricity, the nerves, everything is like creating movement through the alchemy. So even in our, understanding of this reality with the hemispheres. We got southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere. We have two hemispheres of the brain. There's like this real interesting, symbiotic nature, and they call it syncretism. So when we're in Gemini, full moon, so we want to work with the momentum of the moons. You don't want to worship the moon or be taken over by the moon. Lunacy is a thing. People get like they don't. It's interesting to see people behave during full moons. It is a thing. So this full moon, because it's high in the sky, because it's a Gemini moon, so it's going to be affecting, because it's closer, so it's going to be affecting us more. And the energies of Gemini are really mental. It's very much like, I always think of Geminis and people who have strong Gemini placements as channelers, in terms of they're like a radio receiver. They are tuning into all kinds of information, and they can move really quickly and, really kind of create on the fly, based on pulling on this information. And it represents the lungs and the hands and the shoulders and actually all fibers and tissues. So it has like a place that it represents in the body. And Gemini's, the the lungs have like these branches in them. And symbolically in the wheel of the zodiac, Gemini represents this branching off, the branching off from the other three energies, when Aries, Taurus, and then Gemini. So it's a kind of like, we begin with spring, there's a certain energy. Taurus is also the cultivation of all this food, and all the fruits are growing and the vegetables from the winter, everything's coming back, starting your gardens. And then the Gemini kind of represents a shift. And then we move into more of the summertime. So Geminis also are about stories and storytelling. So Geminis were traditionally like the bards and the court jesters and those tricksters, that kind of have a story or riddle, or they hold a lot of knowledge, and they share this knowledge through stories. And this is kind of the relationship of the Sagittarius Gemini axis, because Gemini and Sag are both storytellers. Sag is on this quest for truth. And then Geminis they're just like, haha, let me stir things up around here, tell some stories and reveal some truths through these stories, So they're a little more like elusive in that way. And, it is a time for stories. And in the stories we have, in books and old books and things, there's like a lot of really magical things that are happening in this reality, in these stories, like old, they call them myths, but I really think that there was a time where we were more in tune with nature spirits and the elements, because every culture at its root was tied to the elements and very much in alignment with the ancestors and the spirits around, the energies around them. And I think also our perception, we could have been more open, more in the right brain, which would allow us to see these things more. We live more in a left brain dominant culture in our modern culture. So there is like a real interesting magical quality to these old stories, and almost an alchemy when you read them. I often read them before bed and then have this like amazing dreams. And the reverence in these stories for nature is really, I think, where our relationship to nature can always be deepened. And I practice, working with the elements and being in communication with my ancestors. And it really is a richer experience here when we are really not just utilizing nature, but really offering and tuning in to what she needs, to what she wants and desires. And then it becomes a reciprocity, through the reverence, through the offerings. So, and, Gemini, we really have to pay attention to the mind and, because we live in this energetic field, and it's like a grid of energy, and there's overlays of other things also in the natural energy field. So we have our electricity overlay, we have our information overlay, which is like all the news and all that stuff about politics and things. That's also there because people take it on and then it becomes an energy in the field. So paying attention to the energetic field and the mind can be so influenced by information. And I call it seeding the field. So there's a lot of seeding of the field. Just look at your astrology, like different astrologers online. And I was following some interesting ones for many years. I was super into it. Like, what are they saying? And it was like this drama all the time. And then I realized, they're saying kind of the same things every month about stuff. It's kind of a pattern going on here. And then I was like, oh, well, they're just, hyping it up, and maybe they're into the drama and that whole astro drama. So it's like it can be really dramatic or not. So it depends on how you're moving through the space. And our minds are really super, what we've learned from all the years of, now we know about all the mind control that was going on and all the experiments that have been going on people for centuries. And it really, you can see that the mind is totally programmable. So we really have to be aware and use our own guidance. We don't succumb to this somebody else's, energy and their agendas. So I think we have to be aware that the mind is this open energy system, especially in Gemini, because there is a lot of mental. It's an air sign. It's a neutral sign. So it represents the masculine and feminine, and how two things can exist at once. So it can be creative and destructive. So we are also in this very polarized time. So you want to really notice when you're getting into extremes, because that is an agenda to get us into different camps and to take sides and to fight for something that may not be what it appears to be. And so there's a lot of illusion and trickster energy out there. And so we really have to pay attention to what we're paying attention to, what we're giving our attention to, because this mind is totally programmable. And we forget. We forget all the things that have happened. We forget all the, these crazy projects that the government was doing long ago and still are doing. And it's really dark stuff. So I can't even explore it, but it is always happening. So we have to remember that. And also with the health too. So there's all these different things happening where it's like they really want people to do a lot of the parasite purging, and you may not be experiencing parasites. And we all have parasites too that take care of, they clean up stuff in our bodies. So we don't want to get rid of everything anyway. So there's a whole thing around it. So just recognize how the information you're taking in, how it is affecting you. And if you feel fear or scarcity or anxiety, well, that may not be the right thing to be paying attention to. And tune into nature. Tune into, the elements, the water, the earth, air, water, fire, and begin your practice or nurture your practice with these amazing beings that are all around us and that are so magical. And there is a lot of magic here. So learning how to move and shift our perception is one of those ways that we can really tune into things. Because if we're closed, if we think we know everything, then we may be closing ourselves off to some really interesting information. So go forward in this Gemini season, in Sagittarius season, with the consciousness, which is just the knowing of that the mind is totally this open energy system. And look at what stories you're telling yourself about yourself. I can't tell you how many Scorpios tell me, like, oh, I was told in a reading that I'm this and I'm that, and it's not positive. And, the chart is a way to evolve. It's not what you dig in and, and whatever someone's told you take on, because everybody has their own frame of reference that they're giving information. So we really have to pay attention to that too. When we get readings or we get psychic information from people, that they have a frame of reference. So if you're in Mendocino, I'm doing a full moon ceremony at Santosha Healing. So check that out. It's on my Instagram, and you can register RSVP. It's Friday, and we will be doing some movement and releasing and using energy of shapes. So I forgot to mention shapes in this reality. The infinity symbol is a big important shape, sacred geometry. We can use shapes in this reality because everything is sacred geometry here. It really, so much sacred geometry. The plants show this Fibonacci proportion, and the toroidal field, and everything is, sacred. It's sacred. So we're going to be using shapes, using movement, sound, all these tools of alchemy. And check out my website if you're interested in working with me. I can use shapes to clear disturbance in the body, different systems. If you've had surgeries, if you've had traumas that you've cleared, but you still feel like it's in the body. And then, of course, using the associations with the body and the planets in your chart to the physical body can also tell me a lot about where and how you're holding energies. So I work with some sacred tools of alchemy from biogeometry to change disturbances to a higher vibration. And this helps, the circulation, the lymph system, whole systems can be changed, the nervous system, the organs, the energies of, muscles. They all hold things. So we want to clear things from our energetic field, and this is one of those ways to do it. And it actually is super effective on animals too. So if you got a stressed out pet, or had I helped a cat recently who went through a bunch of medical trauma through getting in a fight and getting an abscess and not being able to clean it because it was up in his ear, and then having issues walking after as he had anesthetic and he went under it. Also had big doses of antibiotics, so I was able to clear the circulation and all the energies of the nerves, and also get into the cerebellum where the motor movement happens and is directed, and also get into the ear where balance is. So it's really just supporting the cat's recovery from the medical system. So the medical system can really save us, but also isn't helpful. It isn't, I don't know, it can save us, but it's not a healing modality. Let's put it that way. So there's all these ways that when you go under medically in surgery, you deplete your energy field. So you may not feel as lively, as strong, as energetic, and this kind of work can help clear that energy from the field. So check me out. Thank you. Have a great full moon.